Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for staying for our annual congregational meeting. Of course, we do this every year, always the second Sunday in December. So it's time for our annual congregational meeting. And so before we get started, I'm going to ask Pastor if he will open us with a word of prayer. Pastor? Oh, I lost him. He was there and then he disappeared.
Yeah, let's have a prayer. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for the freedom to gather in your name and your house. And so as we go about the ministry here at St. Luke's, we ask your blessing on this time together. Send forth your Spirit, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, thank you.
We have a couple items that we need to address on the agenda today. One is we need to elect new council members. Of course, with our Constitution the way it is, we currently have 9 members of council, each serving a 3-year term, and so each year there's 3 people that rotate off the council, and we elect 3 new ones. Now this year it's a little bit different because the decision has been made to reduce council from 9 to 7, and so we're going to drop 1 off this year. So there'll be 3 people going off council, but we'll be needing to elect 2 to replace them. Same thing will happen next year. 3 people will rotate off and two will replace, which will get us down to our 7 going forward. The reason for that is Pastor is starting a new board, a spiritual care board, and we'll be electing some members to join the spiritual care board. And so we are hoping to have 2 people on that board. And so whenever we get to that point, I'll let Pastor talk about that a little bit, about what that's going to entail. But that's the reason for dropping the council back a little bit, because we're going to have another board that will have some people on it. And then, of course, the final piece is the church budget. Each year, the finance committee gets together and goes over the finances of the church. We look at how much was spent in all different categories versus how much was budgeted, and we come up with a projected budget for next year. And so we'll be presenting that to the congregation for your approval and discussion. But with that said, let's start. I guess the first thing will be with the council members. As I said, we need to elect 2 people to go on the council. The 3 people that are going off are Steve Brevis, Joanne Sunny, and Linda Corpany. Those 3 people will be coming off the church council, and we need to elect 2 people to replace them. We had had a ballot box out in the narthex for the last several weeks asking for nominations or for volunteers. We got 1. Jesse Summey has agreed to put his name on the ballot. We really need 2. So at this point, I'm going to ask for nominations or volunteers from the floor. Is there anyone that would be willing to serve on church council, or that you feel like would be a good person to serve on church council? Of course, that person would have to, you can't nominate them, or we're not going to railroad anybody. That person would have to agree to serve. But are there any nominations from the floor? Okay. Well, if there are none, then let me just explain a little bit about how it will work according to our Constitution. Our Constitution states that if there is a vacancy on the church council, then it is the church council's job to fill that vacancy by appointing someone. So with Jesse's name being the only person on the ballot, then of course, I would assume that he would get elected, but we will need one more, so church council, it will be their responsibility to appoint somebody to fill that other position. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of how that would work, because don't ever want the congregation to feel like church council is trying to rule the roost kind of thing. And, you know, this is your opportunity to nominate or volunteer or be on church council, but if not, then council has no choice but to appoint somebody. And so, okay, you have a question?
I have a question. So I know that normally they serve a three-year term and can serve a consecutive 3-year term.
Right.
So they can serve a total of 6 years.
Right,
And that's how it is in the Constitution.
right.
Could we change that? Because I've heard that there are people who are willing to serve, that they are, they've served 6 consecutive years. And so is that something that we need to look at changing then, in order to have enough people to serve?
That is, and that has actually been discussed, yes, that could be changed. That would require a change to our constitution, which we'd have to redo the constitution and get it approved by the congregation. And then, of course, right now, we're still in the process of trying to get our prior constitution approved by the Senate. It's in their hands right now, we haven't gotten it back yet. So that's not something that we could do today, I don't think. But that's definitely a thought for going forward, is to change those rules for church council as far as allowing people to serve more than 2 terms consecutively, or to change the number of years instead of 3, make it 4 or 5 or what. I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing things out there. But yes, definitely a possibility. Just pass it.
Yeah, James, just one thing to underscore, James mentioned it on the underscore, you may have said, well, I nominated somebody, why isn't their name on there? The key is they have to consent. Right, I want to make sure that's clear, because we did have more than one name.
Yes, we did have more than one nomination,
Right.
but only one person that agreed to have their name put on the ballot, and so that's Jesse Summer. So, with that said, are there any nominations from the floor or any volunteers? It don't have to be a nomination, you can volunteer. Is there a volunteer or nomination? If not, then do I have a motion to close the ballot with the one name on it? Have a motion by Paul to close the ballot with one name on it, and second by Angela. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we'll move forward then with voting with the one name on the ballot, and the church council will appoint somebody to fill that other position, and it will be a 3-year term. It will be just like that person was elected, but it'll be chosen by church council instead of by congregation. Next will be the spiritual care board, and kind of same situation. Pastor had wanted to have 2 people serve on this spiritual care board. We had some nominations. We had one person that agreed to have her name put on the ballot. That person is Robin Burgess. She has agreed to have her name put on the ballot, but Pastor had hoped to have 2 on this board. And so, Pastor, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, James. Just real quickly, because I know I don't want to take a lot. The concept was that the council would be more business, and the spiritual care team would be more of assisting me with other matters like prayer chains and doing things to equip them to do more of a service. I don't want to say pastoral, because they're not. They would be supporting me, making calls, doing other things that would support, not replace. And so the hope was at least 2. Didn't have to be just 2. It could be more. But some of the discussion had been that there were some folks that said they would like to do something, but not be on council, to do the business kind of thing. So the idea of a spiritual care team would sort of work with me more closely in dealing with what maybe a board of elders group would normally do. We spent quite a bit of time, those you remember, we had cottage meetings about elders and spiritual care team, and eventually had a vote at some point. And so the spiritual care team model was adopted in the Constitution and allows flexibility. Men and women can serve in those capacities. So that's in a nutshell. I'll take specific questions, but my hope is to have it with. And I'll work with Robin and as we're moving forward, because I'm really excited about that. It's you may think I'm working to death. No, I'm not going to work you. I promise I won't. It'll be fun, and we'll actually be a partnership as we're developing for St. Luke's. This is brand new, so folks that are involved in that will actually take part in, you know, I'm not gonna dictate, but I've got ideas, and we will be working together in order to try to make what fits best for the congregation, okay? So, and I'll be glad to talk to you individually if you have any questions, but, I'm excited about it, so thanks.
Okay. Well, with that, are there any nominations or volunteers of people that would like to serve on the spiritual care board? We have the one name, Robert Burgess, on the ballot, and Pastor would like to have two, but he's willing to go forward with just one if one's all we've got.
James,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to nominate, the volunteer, please.
Oh, okay, well, yes, her name's on there, but are there any other names that are willing to put, anybody else is willing to put their name on the ballot for spiritual caretaker? And same situation, if not, then do we have a motion to close the ballot with one name on it? Okay, Tammy, was that a question? I'll ask a motion. Okay, motion by Tammy, have a second by Haley. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we will move forward. Citizen Presley, can I get y'all to pass out these ballots? I know it seems silly to vote if there's only one name on there, but we have to go through the process of voting. But if you will give everybody one of those, you'll give everybody one of those, and make sure everybody has a pen. Okay, while they're passing out those ballots, then of course the last piece of the agenda is to talk about the church budget. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to David Smith. David is our church treasurer, and he's going to go over the numbers, the budget that has been presented. Finance committee met and came up with a proposed budget, presented that to council. Council reviewed that budget and tweaked it a little bit in some places, and then they approved it to present to the congregation. Now it's up to the congregation to either approve or reject that budget. So David, the floor is yours.
Hopefully everyone's got a copy, that we're available to. If you don't, raise your hand and we'll give you one. So, let me just kind of go over what's on the sheet to help us in discussing it. First, look to the far left. You'll see there's numbers and letters beside certain items. We call those categories. We have a number of categories by which we budget under, and that helps us whenever we go to discuss specific ones. A couple things I wanted to point out on here. 27, if you look at 27A, it's called online donation fees. That's a sub-item under miscellaneous expenses there. We kind of want to know, since the online receipts, we have wanted to kind of keep a figure of how much that is. So we made a separate item there to keep up with that. If you go across item 27 there, where it says 67% of the budget spent, that includes that $299 of actual from collection fees. Just want you to be aware of that. Next thing I want to point out, is you go down to number 30, which is the capital improvement. You remember we had a congregational meeting and ended up zeroed out that line item because we had a repair that we needed to do. And it is located down under item number 39, just underneath that, the HVAC replacement. So we had moved that 25,000 we had set aside for capital improvements to a needed replacement. So just that, be reminded of that. If you look at item number 36, we had combined organ and piano. We had a separate line for organ tuning, then a separate line for piano tuning. We just combined that into one item this time. The total that's there reflects that total. So that's just kind of an overview of some changes that we had made already approved. So if you look, the first column is the budget amount that we had approved in 2021. The second column is what we've actually spent year to date, so that you know where we are. And then the next line is percent of the budget spent. So if you look at each item line by line to see, I think we had about 6 items where we went just a little bit over. The total of those 6 items went over down to about $1,600. And they were small amount things like postage had gone up. We bought a few more Sunday school supplies, which is item 21. Number 25, telephone went up, and that was like $100. Telephone cables had gone up. Good line 36, we had quite a few organ repairs this year, which is kind of unusual. So that was a little bit higher, and the extermination was a little bit higher. We actually had a little rat trouble over in the family life center, which we got the exterminator in to take care of that. And I think another thing that was up a little high was item number 49 was cleaning supplies. We've been doing extra cleaning and that kind of stuff, so that was up a little bit. But if you look at the bottom line down at the bottom there, where it says operating budget, it's under the kind of the pinkish orange color there. We actually have only spent 70% of the budget that we approved last year. The approved budget for operating last year was $181,715 and 80 cents, and we spent $127,242 year to date, and that pretty much covers everything: utilities, pastor salary, and everything. So that's where we were. Any questions on approved last year's budget, what's actually been spent, and the percentage that was spent? If not, we'll jump into the proposed. So after all those first three columns, there's the fourth column there is the proposed 2022 budget. It's in a green column there to help you locate it better. So if you just go down through there, you can see the next column over is the dollar amount of change that from the last approved budget, the dollar amount that has changed, increases or decreased. And the next line over is the percentage of change from last year's approved budget. How much of this year's proposed budget, how much has changed. So like I said, you can just kind of run down through. So the first thing was apportionment. We changed that. Pastor's salary, that was increased there. As I understand it, when we hired the pastor, we had agreed to over a 5-year period to get him up to the standard pay for pastors, and we're in that. We're at 90%. We're 90% right now. So
Or this will take us to 90.
it takes it 90%.
Yeah, we're at 80 right now.
Right.
This will take us to 95.
So this raises it to 90. So there's that increase. And then if you go down through the next group, there's called local items.
Let me look. Yeah, sure. Okay. Somebody driving a silver Impala, has got Steve, the organist, he's wanting to leave and he's blocked in. If you can move the car. Okay, sorry.
So you can run down through the local items there. Let's see. So you can see there were a few things where we had increased. A large number of those increases were based upon what we spent last time. So some of those items we kind of overspent on, we increased a little bit there. So if you go down through there, there's an increase of $25,136 in the local column. And then down in the repairs, I want you to note that, if you look at line item 55 and 61, which is kitchen and bathroom repairs and light bulbs, what we did is we zeroed those out and we increased line item 45 for miscellaneous repairs. Miscellaneous repairs or miscellaneous repairs, whether they're kitchen, bathroom, or
light bulb.
anyway, yeah, or light bulbs or whatever. So we tried to simplify this just a little bit for categorizing. So that had increased from 5,000 to 6,000, but we had dropped out $1,000 and $200 from years past. And I said, you can go through there and just see where the increases are in the area of repairs and maintenance. It actually dropped 14,670 from last time. That being because, number one, look at line 39. So we had changed our budget to include a $25,000 repair for HVAC in the Family Life Center. Hopefully we won't have that big one. We did leave some money in there because there are, I think there's 4 more smaller units over there that run about $10,000 replacement. And of course, as they get older, hopefully they will all go at once. And so we budgeted a $10,000 amount there for a replacement. In addition to another, I guess it's total 15,000. So that's why the overall drop for repairs and maintenance. And so if you look at the bottom line there for operating budget, that brings the total for operating budget 201, 344.50, which is an increase of about $19,628. So that's the proposed budget. I haven't really talked about the Family Life Center debt. That hasn't, our payments on that haven't changed. So if you look at that very bottom line where it says the total debt, you can see we've been making our monthly payments, and it'll be the same number of monthly payments last year. We actually paid down on our debt about $18,000 for 2021. And like I said, so if you add in the Family Life Center debt in there, the proposed budget is $248,951.56. I know I went through all that with questions.
David, perhaps you need to explain the ordinance salary, the PM salary, and
Okay.
the secretarial services.
Okay.
Are more or less placeholders, but not really.
Right. Right. So right now we have people that are filling those jobs. We budgeted, just like we did last year, an amount that we thought we would have to have. We have to replace those individuals. So that's why those amounts are higher there. And for like organists, we included what actual there is what we did pay like Pete and others to come into play for subtracting it from that. So you can see that we are not really spending that. As far as an increase, the cost of living rate was 5.9%. So we had increased all of those items by that amount. But like Evan pointed out, those are items I said we have budgeted for, in case things change from where we are right now. We're fortunate that we got people that are willing to serve those, that it's not costing us too much right now. But that's not going to always be the case, and we need to be prepared for that. So that's why we did the budget, to be prepared. Is that, good enough, Evan?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? If not, then we'll turn it over to
Before we go on with approving the budget, did everybody vote 2 ballots? Everybody should have one for Congregational church council, which the only name on it was Jesse, so make sure you did get that one, okay? Just go on. Okay. And then the other one, spiritual care team, and the name that was on it was Robin Burgess. If you didn't get one or the other of those, stick me on for over this. Trace them, get this ballot and take it to them. I know it may seem kind of silly to take ballots and count them, but it's a formality we have to go through for it to be legit. They'll count the ballots and then the election will be official. Okay. Now, with that said, David, thank you very much for explaining the budget. And like I said, it's really, there's not a drastic change in most of the numbers from last year to this year. If you look down through there, there's two items that account for the biggest bulk of that. It's a $19,000 change, but if you look up under the pastor's salary, you see that's 9,000 of it. And that's something that's been playing. We've been working that each year. So whenever he started out as a part-time pastor, and so we were paying him 50% of what is a standard salary, even though he was working 100% or 110%, but we were paying him 50%. But our plan all along has been to up that from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80. You know, it's a gradual process. So this is just the next step to bump him up to what will now be 90% of his salary, of a standard salary. Hopefully next year we'll be up to 100%, and we'll be there. The other big change, or the other 10,000, is that 10,000 that we're willing to put aside for HVAC replacement. Just because we got caught off guard this year with that $25,000 replacement of the unit over there. And we were told at that time that there are four smaller units that are over there, that if that one went, those other four are probably going to be not too far behind, and they're about $10,000 a piece. Like I say, we can just hope that they don't all four go at once, but we thought we put $10,000 in the budget, and that would at least pay for one of them, and then maybe they'll stagger us out over the next few years instead of all in at once. That's our hope. But that's basically the bulk of the change right there. But are there any questions or discussion about the budget other than I think Edwin had a question, but that was answered? Anything else? If not, then Steve.
I've been doing the maintenance over on the air conditioners you were just talking about, those four.
Right.
Out of those four, there's one that's highly questionable right now, and that could be overnight, or could be a week change. So just a word up front, there's a potential that we may have to reduce funds to get one of those things within a modest future. Don't know it'll happen, and praise the Lord, it may happen 10 years from now. But it could be 10 days as well. So,
Well, one thing to keep in mind, as far as the HVAC units and just the building in general, I mean, I know it doesn't seem like it, but we built that Family Life Center in 2009. It's 12 years old. So it's, and that's kind of the life expectancy of a heating and air conditioning unit is in the 10 to 15 year range. So it's time, and not just that, just in general building maintenance. We're getting to the point now where things are going to start breaking, things are going to start wearing out. That's life. But anything else?
Oh, we just have to remember this is a budget, and you take care of necessity.
Right. Yeah, and
And
exactly
sometimes
right.
the loans have to be put on the back burner.
Exactly. This is a budget, and this is the finance committees and then the council's best attempt at what we think we will spend. And church council is very prudent with the church's money. We try to not spend money where money is not needed. And we always come in way under budget, and knock on wood, raise that money. A lot of that is attributed to, of course, the salaries of the people that we don't pay right now. Even though they're in the budget, we don't pay those salaries, but we know at some point in the future, we're going to have to pay those salaries. And as far as things breaking, you can't plan for, you can only plan for it as best you can, but you have no way of knowing what's going to happen. So this is just a budget, and the church council tries to do their best to work within this budget, and we always Well, if you look at the numbers at the bottom, last year the budget was 181,000, and so far we've only spent 127,000. Of course, we still got a month to go, so we're gonna spend a little more, but we're still gonna come in way under the budget for the year. So, kudos to church council for that, for not wasting the money. So I just don't want everybody to be aware of that, purposely, it's, we try to make sure that it goes where it needs to go. Other questions or comments? If not, I need a motion from someone to accept the budget.
Make a motion to accept the budget as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Steve Revis.
I'll take it.
We have a second by Haley. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Grayson, do we have, Bobby, do we have somebody?
Yes,
Somebody? Have results of the balloting? Okay. I know this is gonna be a shocker. But Jesse will be the new church council member. The church council will be installed on January the 9th, and then the first council meeting will be on Monday, January the 10th. And the spiritual care committee person is Robin Burgess, and Pastor will get with her to plan out when they will begin their activities. So that's official. With that said, that covers all of the things that were on the actual agenda. Is there anything else from the congregation that needs to be discussed?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I
I'll second.
have a second by Tammy. All in favor? Have a good one. Thank you.
How do you do?